Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
So let's start with the president's appointment of Matthew Whitaker as acting attorney general. Here's what he said about Whitaker on Friday and what he said about him last month.
I don't know Matt Whitaker. Matt Whitaker worked for Jeff Sessions.
I can tell you Matt Whitaker's a great guy. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker.
So, does the president know Matt Whitaker or not? And specifically, did he know before appointing him that Whitaker was a critic of the special counsel's investigation?
The president does know Matt Whitaker, has gotten to know him over the course of the last year since he has been the chief of staff to the attorney general. The president's point is it's not like he's putting a friend in there who he's known for his entire life. He's putting somebody who has been working at the Department of Justice for 13 months now in a very senior position as chief of staff to Attorney General Sessions.
So he does know him.
What I say is what I say.
Conservatism is a racket.
It's a racket, everybody. Hi, hope you had a decent Veterans Day. If you are a veteran, from one veteran to another, thank you for serving, your country. If you're not a veteran, you're welcome. I can't believe the president did absolutely nothing for Veterans Day. It took my breath away. Yesterday at 10 o'clock in the morning, okay, we couldn't do the show yesterday because Comcast doesn't give veterans, internet on Veterans Day. Thanks, Comcast. Yeah, we were going to do a show, even though I'm a veteran. We weren't going to take, and Scotty is too. He's a vet. We were going to work. Of course we were going to work. That's the whole point of, serving. So, but we couldn't because we just didn't have any of the internets working. And we have 5 different networks here. So please do support the show. None of them worked. I would like to make the change to fiber optic, but it's so much more expensive. We already started the project. I mean, we ran the lines. The lines are here, but we can't afford the service. So buy a stinking fierce Randi Rhodes hat. I mean, this should be the answer to the stupid red hat is my beautiful black hat. And buy a T-shirt. Thank you. Just go to randirhodes.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you will see a circle. It says merch. Click on that. It'll take you to the store. All right. This is where we left off with Whitaker, okay? And this is where we're going to pick up. There's so much going on today. It's unbelievable. 44 people have perished in these California wildfires, and you have a president who's tweeting out that it's your own damn fault. I in my whole life, I've never seen anybody so sociopathic hold this much power in this country or well, we have seen it in other countries, but never here. Never here. We got very lucky. We got very lucky when we needed somebody like an FDR versus somebody like, I don't know, a Trump, a Hitler, a Mussolini, a Stalin, a Franco. We got lucky. Our luck is running out, okay? It truly is. So I got to say, this California thing is it's horrific. The more you read the personal stories of people, the more hellish it actually, and it has absolutely nothing to do with forest management. In fact, I think I've been tweeting my brains out because I'm just so sick of these lunatic. I mean, there are guys from InfoWars that work there, that actually work there, that should know better, and I believe they do. I really do, love. I really do. I think you know better. Either that or the best part of you is still running down your dad's leg. I don't know what to say to you anymore. I'm going to have to start charging you rent on my Twitter page. But it's an amazing thing. Obviously, these wildfires are caused by drought. Drought equals climate change. And we have a president who denies that this is occurring and blames the people of California for the management of federal forest lands that are under his purview. 57% of all the forests in California are federally owned, and the other 2/3 are privately owned. The nerve of this man to just tweet any stupid bullshit that comes into it when people are literally fleeing for their lives, dying, having their trucks melt melt in the middle of the street. People died in their cars. People were jammed in traffic and died in their cars. This is a sick presidency, I have to say. Just right there, that alone should have been enough. Should be enough. But oh no, there's more. CNN is suing the president and Sarah Sanders and other people in the administration for violating Jim Acosta's First and Fifth Amendment rights. No due process. We'll go through that. I'll show you what the law requires if you are going to have your press pass revoked. There is a process for doing that. And of course, that didn't happen. We've got these congratulations to Arizona and Kristen Sinema. She's your new Senator Sinema, everybody. That's a beautiful thing. 6 days. Arizona refused to pile onto this fraud GOP strategy, and that is what it is. It's a strategy because this Brenda Snipes woman, who is the election supervisor in Broward County, was appointed to that position by Jeb Bush. And then after that, yes, she was elected. That's the honest truth about her. She has been sued more times than I could tell you. Tim Canova, who ran as an independent, requested a review of his ballots after he lost to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And Miss Snipes, in violation of a court order, destroyed all those ballots. We have been asking for her to be removed forever. Rick Scott has been the governor for 8 years. And for 8 years, he liked her. He loved her. He thought she was exactly what you need in a Democratic county. Somebody that was inept or somebody that made mistakes. And by the way, I have to tell you, in very Republican Bay County, where they have a Republican supervisor of elections, they allowed at least 150 people that we know of to vote by email, which is completely illegal in this state, and I believe in every state. But I'm sure about our law. I'm in Florida. Bay County voted by email? That is a total violation of law. You don't hear anybody from Gateway Pundit or InfoWars or any of these right-wing, pieces of swill talking about that. That is so we have that. We have cover-ups. We have today, I suspect, I don't know. I think you might see indictments from Mueller come down today. I'm not sure because nobody can be sure because Mueller doesn't leak. But it's being talked about among journalists that Robert Mueller has dozens of sealed indictments. The quiet period is over. And as early as today, we could see indictments. Now, yesterday, I went home, okay? I stayed here. I waited to make sure that there was no way we could do the show, and then I left. I tweeted you guys, and then I left, and I went back to my house. And I started watching some of this lunatic right-wing fringy stuff because somebody's got to do it because these people are doing really ugly things. And I watched Jerome Corsi, and Jerome Corsi was telling his audience, and then he began reading from the Bible. He was telling his audience that he fully believes he's going to be indicted and that he's going to go to jail. And then he started reading from the Bible and started telling his audience he'll go crazy. And that ship sailed. Right? I mean, this is a guy who is a conspiracy theorist. He's a swift boater. He attacks veterans. He's never served. But Jerome Corsi has attacked John McCain. He's attacked John Kerry. He's a real piece of dung, okay? And it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. 72 years old. He should go to jail. He really should. He should go to freaking jail and go crazy. He is crazy. They're all crazy. People are lunatic fringe. They are cult members. They are lying sacks who hate their country and really want to see fascism take hold, not just here, but in Poland, in Hungary, in Austria, they're in Sweden. They have these fascist Hitlerian movements all over the world now, led by Steve freaking Bannon. Anyway, so I watched Jerome Corsi freak out, and then all of a sudden, he's like, he's telling people, I'm watching him on YouTube, and he's telling people that he's been banned from YouTube while I'm watching him on YouTube, and that they need to give him money in Super Chat. And he's saying he can't see the super chat. He doesn't know if you're giving, so please make sure you're giving, because he's been banned. I'm watching it, and I see people, one person I saw give $29. It was a weird amount. But anyway, I got to tell you, this attack on veterans was so disgusting, and it always comes from them. They hate us. They literally hate us. The president didn't go to a cemetery, and he said because his helicopter couldn't fly. You know how far away he was from the cemetery? 50 miles. You know that the Joint Chiefs, General Dunford, got in his car and drove to the cemetery and was there with all the world leaders. But our president wouldn't stand under an umbrella, or wouldn't, he said, the helicopter was grounded. Well, it was 50 miles away. You could have gone by car. You could have hitched a ride with Dunford. I mean, it was just the sickest, lamest excuse. It's like the dog ate my homework thing. And people who are, Republican, who swear they love the veterans, they excuse it because the cult leader did it. They can find a million excuses for I just can't even imagine if Barack Obama refused to do anything on Veterans Day. And at 10 o'clock in the morning yesterday, Trump's schedule changed. Well, it didn't really change. They put it out. And I tell you, this man does nothing all day. He really, now that all his 30, Florida and Arizona and all these places he lost, now all these rallies are done. Montana lost. Right? Now, all the 30 rallies this man did, that was all that was on his schedule. I kept trying to tell you yesterday, 10 o'clock, 10:03 in the morning, the schedule comes out. He has nothing on his schedule at all. Nothing. He did nothing all freaking day on Veterans Day. How in the hell do you expect? And now I'm reading deeper about Whitaker. Let me tell you something. This new guy, Matthew Whitaker, scammed veterans out of their life savings. This is so disgusting, okay? I told you that he was on the board of directors of World Patent Marketing, okay? A company based out of here. Of course, this is Scam Central, out of Florida. And this guy enticed and sought out and marketed to veterans, a lot of them disabled veterans, for them to give their last pennies to him, and he would patent their invention. Like he was showing you that hot tub that I showed you, that little video of him pitching this hot tub. It was a disabled hot tub, right? It was a hot tub with a chair in it. And he was saying it was going to change everything for disabled people, this hot tub was. Well, it turns out that the reason why he was doing that disabled hot tub, for people who can't climb over the hot tub wall, he actually targeted, they promoted themselves to military disabled veterans. They said that they were a champion of those who served in the military. Quote, this was from their marketing materials. Not only do we honor the veterans and soldiers of our armed forces, but we are also celebrating what they are protecting, the American dream. That was their statement to the veterans of the United States in 2014. And it highlighted, this marketing piece highlighted Whitaker's role at the firm. Said that he was a former U.S. attorney in Iowa. And guess who else was on the board of directors? Our congressman. And this is a shame because he's a disabled veteran. He's a Republican congressman from Florida, just got reelected, Brian Mast, up here in Palm Beach, northern Palm Beach. He was also on the board. And Whitaker was, people were being scammed so hard. Here's the article from Forbes that says that after these veterans would write letters saying, I just paid you my life savings, blah, 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 and nothing's happening, and year after year after year, Whitaker would personally threaten them. He would send them personal emails, intimidating emails. Here's one of them that Forbes was able to get. August 25th, 2015. A customer who had contacted World Patent Marketing with his grievances and filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. The Federal Trade Commission docket, reviewed by Miami New Times here in Miami, has an email exchange. Also, page 362 of 400 pages, right? And it explains what happened. When Whitaker was told about the customer's charge of being cheated out of his life savings, rather than expressing concern, this is just like, Trump with the fires. This is just like Trump with Puerto Rico. This is just like Trump with every major disaster, okay? Instead of expressing concern, the sociopath Whitaker wrote to say, I am a, quote, former United States attorney for the Southern District of Iowa. Your emails and message from today seem to be an apparent attempt at possible blackmail or extortion. You also mentioned filing a complaint with the Better Business Bureau and to smear World Patent Marketing's reputation online. I am assuming you know that there could be serious civil and criminal consequences for you if that is, in fact, what you and your, quote, group is doing. Understand, we take threats like this quite seriously. Please conduct yourself accordingly. But Whitaker had picked the wrong guy. This guy wrote back. His name is A. Rudsky, okay? He wrote back, do not email me with your scare tactics. I am an attorney too. Stop with your bullshit emails. You are a party to a scam. You will be exposed, and I hope I make myself clear, Mr. Whitaker. Well, that's not the only threat they made. The complaint that was filed, the civil complaint that was filed with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, in 2017, alleged that Whitaker's company cheated 1,504 would-be investors of more than $25 million and cited yet another way that World Patent Marketing attempted to frighten its customers. It sent its customers emails describing the company's security team. Quote, they are all ex-Israeli special ops and trained in Krav Maga, one of the most deadly of the martial arts. The World Patent Marketing Security Team are the kind of guys who are trained to knock out first and ask questions later. They were sending these things to disabled veterans. What in the F? How in the world does anybody believe that the cult leader and his ilk support the troops or care about veterans or veterans' issues? It's depressing reading this complaint. It's very depressing. But I must tell you, there is now a criminal investigation. And guess who's conducting the criminal investigation? Because the civil case has been settled for $26 million. But now there's a criminal investigation. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. And the Wall Street Journal reports that the FBI is conducting the criminal investigation and that the investigation at World Patent Marketing is during the period of time in which Whitaker worked there. How could this man be put in charge of the Justice Department? Constitutional concerns and all aside. It's crazy, right?
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
It seems to me the facts for recusal are very strong here. This is someone who's made repeated and prejudicial comments against the investigation. It's someone who has made false statements about it, claiming that the Russians really had no impact on our election. It's someone who has a relationship with one of the important witnesses in the investigation. And I want to say this. If Mr. Whitaker does not recuse himself...
He's not legally required to, even if the ethics office says he should, correct?
I don't know whether he's legally required to.
Okay.
But here's the thing. We have every right to expect all of the employees of the Justice Department to follow the ethics rules, and that means especially the Attorney General. But, I want to make this very clear. If he doesn't recuse himself, if he has any involvement whatsoever in this Russia probe. We are going to find out whether he made commitments to the president about the probe, whether he is serving as a back channel to the president or his lawyers about the probe, whether he's doing anything to interfere with the probe. Mr. Whitaker needs to understand that he will be called to answer, and any role that he plays will be exposed to the public. We don't want there to be any ambiguity about that.
Are you convinced that he's constitutionally eligible to hold the position?
I'm not convinced at all. There are serious constitutional arguments that as a principal officer, he cannot be appointed to this position. I think that's certainly the right policy answer, also may be the answer demanded by the Constitution.
I think it is, but all constitutional issues aside, this man is under FBI investigation. That stupid company that he ran that built, disabled veterans to the tune of $26 million. This is the Trump University fraud case. And by the way, it was here in Florida, and Pam Bondi was the Attorney General. Isn't that something? So that's why it was a civil case. And he's threatening people with Israeli special ops to come visit their house. Let me read this to you. This is just so vile, okay? This is in The Guardian today. It says, Donald Trump's new acting attorney general. And I don't know if Adam Schiff, I don't know if Jerry Nadler, who sits on judiciary, or will sit on judiciary in January, I don't know if we're going to make it through this lame duck. This lame duck, they may shut down the government because Trump wants his stupid freaking wall. Isn't it interesting? We don't hear anything about the caravan, and yet 5,600 of our veterans, 5,600 of our troops, our active duty, our reserve and guard, they're down at the border right now in tents, 20 people to a tent, no mess hall, no air conditioning, in the middle of the freaking desert for show. For show. And they won't be home for Thanksgiving because this president wants to show. He uses the military. They all do. They prey on us. It's disgusting. So I get so livid when they do this. I get so angry. Here's the story. Donald Trump's new acting attorney general, Matthew Whitaker, was involved in a company that scammed U.S. military veterans out of their life savings, according to court filings and interviews. Whitaker, a former U.S. attorney in Iowa, was paid to work as an advisory board member for World Patent Marketing, a Florida-based company accused by the U.S. government of tricking aspiring inventors out of millions of dollars. Earlier this year, it was ordered to pay authorities $26 million. Several veterans, two of them with disabilities, said they lost tens of thousands of dollars in the WPM scam, having been enticed into paying for patenting and licensing services by the impressive credentials of Whitaker and his fellow advisors. World Patent Marketing has devastated me emotionally, mentally, and financially, Melvin Kiana of Hawaii told a federal court last year, adding that he trusted the firm with his life savings because, quote, it had respected people on the board of directors. The 60-year-old said he was a disabled veteran, U.S. Army paratrooper, and paid the company in 2015 and 16 to patent and promote his ideas for fishing equipment. Quote, I received nothing for the $14,085 I paid to the company other than bad quality drawing and a logo that my grandson could have made. Kiana and other WPM customers described their experiences in declarations to court written under penalty of perjury as part of a civil lawsuit brought by the Federal Trade Commission against WPM and its chief executive, Scott Cooper. Emails filed as evidence to the case show desperate customers begging Cooper and his team for their money back. Quote, here's an email they sent. You have caused me tremendous grief. I can't sleep. My stress level is at an all-time high, and the last of my savings has been stolen with nothing to show for it. One unemployed widow who lost $8,000 wrote to Cooper in December 2016. I mean, this is not years old, okay? This just happened. Another investor who paid $12,000 said he was left with, quote, a stress-related condition that's eating away at my hair. In particular, World Patent Marketing promoted itself as a champion of those who served in the military. Quote, Not only do we honor the veterans and soldiers of our armed forces, but we are also celebrating what they are protecting, the American dream. It said in a statement timed for Veterans Day 2014, which highlighted Whitaker's role at the firm. World Patent Marketing claimed to have made an unspecified donation to the Wounded Warrior Project nonprofit, which did not respond to an email seeking confirmation of those payments. Whitaker publicly vouched for WPM, claiming in a December 24 statement it went, quote, beyond making statements about doing business ethically and translated those words into action. I would only align myself with a first-class organization, Whitaker wrote. But customers reported to authorities that they had been treated unethically by a company that, beneath its glossy marketing pamphlets, was a shabby operation. Dennis Artman, a 24-year veteran of the Army and Air Force Reserves from Washington State, took $25,000 from his retirement savings account in 2015 to pay WPM to patent and promote a wearable device his then wife had created to jolt sleepy drivers awake and guide them to accommodation. He said, I know it's a lot of money, but I believe in it and I believe in you, his ex-wife Gwendolyn Artman, 58, said in an interview. Gwendolyn Artman said she received approximately 25 emails from WPM that touted the backgrounds of Whitaker and other board members. In late 2015, Artman said World Patent Marketing stopped returning her calls and emails. Only after she complained to the office of Florida's Attorney General, that would be Pam Bondi, did Cooper call. She must have called him, asking her to withdraw the complaint and promising to make amends. Again, nothing materialized. The Artmans divorced this year after more than 10 years of marriage. Gwendolyn, who runs a not-for-profit treatment center for people suffering from opioid addiction, said the World Patent Marketing saga was partly to blame for her divorce. Quote, I think he lost faith in me. It was a lot of money, and he blamed me for losing it. A Justice Department spokeswoman, Carrie Kupek, said in an email, quote, Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker has said he was not aware of any fraudulent activities. Any stories suggesting otherwise are false. Attorneys for Cooper did not respond to emails seeking comment. Cooper denied wrongdoing in the FTC case. He was ultimately ordered to pay $1 million and surrender any proceeds from selling his $3.5 million Miami mansion in return for the rest of the $26 million judgment being suspended. Some veterans who gave money to WPM said they were impressed by the inclusion on the advisory board of Congressman Brian Mast, a Florida Republican who lost both his legs in September 2010 while serving with the Army in Afghanistan. One of these veterans, identified in court filings and company materials as John D., complained to Cooper that WPM had deserted him after using his status as a veteran to promote his idea for a new type of umbrella. Quote, I'm sure he'll be your best supporter, John D. wrote of Mast in a September 2016 email. But what about my product? Brian Mast was reelected this week and said in a declaration to court that Cooper appointed him to the advisory board without his consent after the two met twice in February of 2016 at an event at then WPM's offices in Miami. They made a campaign donation to Brian Mast, $5,400, and last year, Brian Mast returned it. Another WPM client, Ryan Mastee, who served in the Navy and suffers from dyslexia and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, said a WPM representative boasted of the company's connections to Whitaker and Mast in a promotional telephone call that persuaded him to hand over his money. Masti told the court he had lost more than $75,000 after paying WPM to register, develop, and promote his idea for Socially Accepted, a social network aimed at people with disabilities. He said in return he received only a press release, a logo, and a shoddy website template. Wow. Right. Not even a t-shirt. I spent the money on a dream to help people, Masti said in an interview on Friday, and I lost everything. Masti, a 26-year-old farmer from upstate New York, borrowed $50,000 from his retirement account, took out a commercial loan for $20,000, and used another $7,000 he inherited from his late grandfather, a veteran of the Second World War. A WPM executive told him, quote, "You could make $1 million in sales at a minimum." Having voted for Trump enthusiastically in 2016, Masti said on Friday he would soon be changing his party affiliation to Democratic following the president's elevation of Whitaker. "It's totally ridiculous," said Masti. "It makes the whole Republican Party look so bad. How could a president appoint someone like this? And then not to have a problem about it when it comes out? He should be taking care of the victims." Well, Mr. Masti, that will never happen. That will never happen. The president has blamed Puerto Rico for its own hurricane demise. It has blamed Californians for their own hellish fires. It has blamed you for your own gullibility. It has blamed the gullibility of people who believed that Donald Trump was really running a university and built them out of $36,000 to $40,000 apiece. Oh, no. Oh, no, they will never protect anybody from victimization. Never. And all this talk about relaxing regulations is going to allow for more fraud, for less protection. It's a sick freaking society we have here. And now there's a criminal investigation that's being conducted by the FBI. And this man, Whitaker, is going to be in charge of the Justice Department?
To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
The president tweeted the following yesterday: "There's no reason for these massive, deadly, and costly forest fires in California, except that forest management is so poor. Billions of dollars are given each year with so many lives lost, all because of gross mismanagement of the forests. Remedy now or no more Fed payments." Is that what this fire is about? Is it mismanagement of the forests in California?
No, it's not. I mean, there are a lot of root causes about why the fire season has become so much worse over the years. But you know, for the president at a time when people are facing utter disaster, to be making a statement like this, making a threat like this, this just goes to show how little he understands the job he has. That he would be punitive at a time like this rather than coming to the defense of people facing disaster of their lives. He's out there making these broad and false statements and threatening to remove funding from a state that's devastated right now.
Do you think it's a political thing because California's so blue?
I do. This is a president who, more than any other, is punitive. And I think we saw that in the tax cut by taking away state and local tax deductions. That was aimed at the blue states. Yep. Basically, he is only the president, I think, in his view, of those who voted for him. The rest he could care less.
It's so true. I mean, you know, the entire Northeast went blue. The entire Northeast. Maine is now firmly in Democratic hands. New York's state legislature, I told you the New York Senate was a Republican thing. For a really long time, nobody really thought about New York like that, but not anymore. You have Arizona, obviously, you know, a tough election, but you still have your governor, Ducey, who's probably going to appoint Martha McSally. You know, they'll split it. So that, you know, there's that. And then you have California, you know, that's still counting their votes. We don't even know. We could pick up 40 seats. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And in California, you have 44 people died. 44 people dead. And the president is tweeting out, it's your fault. Also, he's saying in this new budget package, okay, today Congress goes back into session. and they'll stay in session. This is the lame duck session. I told you we'd have a contested election. Was I right? Was I right? Hey, programmers who fill your airwaves with all kinds of disparate shit, why don't you try putting somebody who can actually see what the lay of the land is and inform your listeners that this is what's about to happen? I told you we'd have a contested election, and it is contested everywhere. Georgia just extended the certification date. The judge in Georgia said, no, you will count those provisional ballots, because there were an abnormal amount of people denied actual ballots and forced to vote provisionally. 27,000 of them in Georgia. And check this out. Look, just check out the number. This is just wow. This is a big wow, everybody. You know, they don't have paper ballots in Georgia, right? Right? Yeah. So they can't have a recount. Damn it. So what they do is they say in their law that if nobody gets 50% plus one, then there's a runoff. Guess how many votes Stacey Abrams is away from a runoff election? 24,000. Guess how many people were forced to vote provisional? 27,000. Coincidence? I think not. So, yes, the contested election. Now we go into the lame duck session, and this is going to be a doozy too, because you have all the bitter enders, you have all the people who need to do whatever it is that they wanted to do to prove to the lobby shops that they are worthy in this lame duck session, and that includes shutting down the government over the stupid wall. If that they've passed like I think there's 12 appropriations bills, and 7 of them haven't been passed. The government is not funded. See, and now they're going to scramble to do that. God help us if they scramble to take another vote with this lame duck Congress to repeal Obamacare. You see what I mean? They got 4 freaking weeks left before our chosen people take the oath. This is a scary and sick time. I don't know what they're going to do. But I will tell you, California, listen, I don't know how people vote for Republicans in California when they put out tweets blaming you for a situation that he obviously made worse. Gutting the EPA, putting Scott Pruitt at the EPA, deregulating everything, doing absolutely nothing on forest management, threatening to take away disaster funding for you in the middle of a disaster. It isn't even over. And then he does the same thing with Puerto Rico. And that's another thing that has to go into these appropriations bills is money for Puerto Rico. He lied. I'm shocked. He said that Puerto Rico, check this out, was using the disaster relief money to pay down their debt. So he's saying that Puerto Rico is using the disaster relief money that comes from the federal government to pay the federal government. That's just stupid. They only got their electricity back in August. This is just stupid. And he's threatening to withhold any disaster funding for them. I mean, it's so sick. It's so crazy. I want you to hear what's going on there.
When I read the quote where your husband, it was in one of the papers over the weekend, said if you're going to die, die fighting. You were with your patients and you didn't want to leave the hospital. You tell me what he meant by that.
Well, I called him because my car was completely surrounded by flames and I couldn't see out the window, and I started to fill up with smoke, and I called him and I said, Nick, I'm gonna die and I'm not gonna make it out of here. There's just flames everywhere and I don't know what to do. And he said, don't die, run. If you're gonna die, die fighting. You have to run. And so I jumped out of my car in the middle of these flames and ran, and I ran up to my friend in front of me. Her name is Karen Davis, and her truck was melting into the ground, into the pavement, and her windows, when I went to go knock on the window, it was completely black, and filled with smoke inside her cab. So I either thought I was watching her die in there, or she got to safety, and I didn't know which one. And I couldn't open up her door. The doorknob was melted. And so I had to leave her, and I thought that was the last time I was going to see her. And I went to the next vehicle in front of her because it was so hot and I was running out of air. I thought maybe I could jump into this car and she'll save me. And it was Dr. McClarty's car. And I got into her car and I burned a hole in her seat from my pants. And we just sat there and prayed. And we held hands. And we prayed to God that we were both going to survive this. And we just thought, how can this happen? And I came back into my mind because her car started to fill up with smoke again, that my husband told me, run, don't stay there, run, just get out of the car and run. And so I told Dr. McClarty, I have to go, I have to run. And so I got out of her car and I ran, and there was no oxygen in the air. The fire was just consuming it, and I was just gasping. And I put my hand out and I closed my eyes because the ash was so hot and there was just embers flying in my eyes. It was burning me. I held my hand out and I ended up touching the back of a fire truck. And I got over to the side of the fire truck, knocked on the doors. The stickers were melting off this truck. And 2 firemen came out and picked me up and put me into their fire engine and put a fire blanket on the windows. And it was just amazing. I thought, okay, I'm safe. That I can live in here, right? Because this is what they go through. This is what they do. And then they called for air support, and they said, that's impossible. We can't get air support. And he said, we need air support. We're not going to make it. And I just thought, what do you mean? What do you mean we're not going to make it? This isn't happening. I can't leave now. They won't let me leave this fire engine. My husband told me to run. I was going to run. I can't leave. And so I ended up looking out of the fire blankets, and there was a dozer, and this dozer just came out of nowhere and cleared a path, and he saved all of us. He saved everybody's lives. Those dozer operators are incredible, and they deserve to be the heroes in this story because they just cleared a path and they made way for us. And we were able to get back to the hospital and help patients that started showing up at the hospital.
And she went back to the hospital. She's a nurse. She went back there. And then the hospital burnt down. Seriously, the hospital burnt down. And the President of the United States is sending out mean tweets? Really?
President Trump, when he was in France, had something to say about the wildfires devastating California this weekend. He wrote, there is no reason for these massive, deadly, and costly forest fires in California except that forest management is so poor. He accuses officials of mismanaging the forests and adds, quote, remedy now or no more Fed payments. I want to get Tom Sater in here from the CNN Severe Weather Center. And Tom, some West Coast firefighters had an answer for the president. I want to read part of it to you. The head of the Pasadena Fire Association writing, Mr. President, with all due respect, you are wrong. The fires in SoCal are urban interface fires and have nothing to do with forest management. Come to SoCal and learn the facts and help the victims.
Really?
Tom, a strong statement there from the California firefighters. Fact check President Trump's tweet for us.
Okay. You know, Anna, I enjoy being in the weather department because it's neutral, you know, with the exception of climate change issues. But, you know, staying out of the political arena, this is wrong on so many levels. They're right. This has nothing to do with forest management. I mean, look, we're not looking at dense forest here, especially down in Malibu. But forest management has nothing to do with mountain winds coming down the passes at 70 miles per hour or humidity levels in 1 hour dropping Thursday from 35% down in the single digits, drier than most deserts. But again, if you think about it, to say remedy now or we'll take your funds, he's already taken some of their funds. But I read a tweet that followed that one that makes good sense. It said, it's like taking funds from the National Hurricane Center until you stop all these hurricanes. I mean, it's the same notion. But more importantly, people died in their homes. They found bodies outside the homes, in their vehicles, trying to flee, outside their vehicles, just trying to run away. we've got a problem here because even though the winds may lighten tomorrow for the northern area and the Camp Fire, they're going to remain strong to the south. And I think by Tuesday, we may see the winds pick up just like we did on Thursday, where the fires to the north and the Camp Fire were burning 8 football fields every minute. High pressure Santa Ana winds keeping the rain out of the area. We should have 5 to 6 inches of rain since the beginning of October. We haven't had a drop.
Not a drop. It's a drought, and it's the humidity is so low. The winds are so high. This is, I mean, the ignorance of this man and the lack of empathy. He is such a sociopath, and everyone around. I mean, you know, today he's gonna. Well, today he fired what's her face, Kirstjen Nielsen from the Department of Homeland Security because she didn't separate enough families for him, for his taste. And John Kelly is probably going to go because, you know, the reason why Kirsten was there is because Kelly liked her. I mean, they worked together at DHS when Kelly was the head of DHS. And then when he left to go be the White House chief of staff, she stepped up and she took his job. And so they're probably both going, who the hell cares? He can't find anybody that's not a sociopath who will work with him. I told you when we first launched this show back because I knew he was going to win. I knew. I'm always right. It's sick because I can actually read and analyze. And I can see the writing on the wall. But I told you, going to work for him was making a deal with the devil. And that the devil takes the payments on the installment plan. And you will never get out from under working for Donald Trump. And then Rick Wilson wrote the book that actually made sense of you know what I was trying to tell you in the most easy to understand sentence. Everything Donald Trump touches dies. And I'm just wondering if this country can survive him. I want to believe that this democracy is strong enough, that it's feisty enough, and that it's educated enough.
Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Should every vote count?
Sure, every vote should count. Every legal vote should count. But we know here that illegal votes were put in the mix, and of course they shouldn't count.
Why do you, wait. You just said we know illegal votes are put in the mix. No, well, where are your facts coming from, though? Where's the evidence?
Well, what do you mean? No one's disputing that illegal votes were mixed in with illegal votes. That's already been agreed to.
No, I don't think anybody's agreed to that. In fact,
Commissioner Snipes has actually agreed to that. She just said we should put them all together because there were just a few of those and the rest of them are legal. So under her watch, illegal votes are put in, and she's arguing we should count illegal votes.
Hold on, though, because facts are important here, and I can tell you with fact, the Secretary of State's office has told us they've received no complaints of illegal criminal activity regarding this election and the vote tally.
Okay, this is fascinating.
We do know that there is a lawsuit currently with Rick Scott, who just filed a lawsuit alleging that there were votes counted after that deadline that were included ultimately in the total, but that hasn't been sorted out yet.
Anna, what is sorted out, which is beyond dispute, is that Brenda Snipes has already acknowledged and argued that illegal votes that she submitted together with legal votes should be, because it's unclear how many there were, should nonetheless be counted, lest we not count the legal votes. That's not the way this works. You can't mix in illegal votes to try to steal an election.
We're going to go back to Ryan. We're going to make sure we get all the facts straight there. The latest information we have is that there is no evidence of any criminal activity.
The FDLE said there was no evidence of fraud. The FDLE said there's no evidence of fraud.
Brenda Snipes has already agreed that illegal votes are in the mix.
Okay, so here's the thing. You can talk over me, but that doesn't make you right.
Really?
That's not accurate.
You're talking about something different. That doesn't make what you're saying doesn't disagree with what I'm saying.
So you don't want to hear what I got to say, and this is exactly the problem, right? The reason why you all are screaming voter fraud, the reason why Ron DeSantis has all of these folks camped outside of Broward County screaming is because you all are afraid of what the truth may be. The truth may be they did not win these elections. The truth
is they won this election. And the truth is it's always the Democrats said in advance advance.
I'm going to let you go ahead, and once you get to the period, I'll chime in. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. The Democrats in the last election already said that if the Republicans lose, or when the Republicans lose, they're going to claim voter fraud and it was rigged. The Democrats are simply telling what their playbook is. Fact is that in this case, it's so interesting that all the allegations are that there have to be recounts when Republicans win. It somehow never works the other way. Turns out that there's massive fraud going back a long time in Florida in these counties, and in this case, Brenda Snipes has admitted, this is not really a question of dispute, that illegal ballots were mixed in with illegal ballots.
You're not saying it. So this is now the 5th time that you've tried to lie. So let me just now chime in here and fix this. What I'm saying to you is Governor Scott, he went ahead and sicked FDLE on this election, and FDLE has come back and said there's no evidence of voter fraud. The other point that I think is important is you all continue to work diligently to suppress votes all over this country, because you know what happens when real democracy shows up. When real democracy shows up, y'all don't win. And that is the fact of the matter. Broward County, Palm Beach County don't have the resources they need to count all of the votes. That is what has taken this process so long. Initially, like you, I was upset at Brenda Snipes until I realized that her county has been under-resourced. They are trying to ensure that every vote is counted. I have story after story in my Twitter feed of folks saying they turned in their ballot a week early and they just found out that their vote wasn't counted because it didn't arrive until November 9th. The only fraud there is, why are those votes hiding somewhere? Why were those votes not counted?
I'm sorry, and yet it seems that the Democrats are not only arguing that illegal votes should be counted. By the way, the Democrats' lawyers are arguing. The Democrats' lawyers have argued they should be counted. Is that something you didn't hear?
I've not heard anybody argue illegal votes should be counted. And I got to end the conversation.
Non-citizen votes are illegal votes, and they've argued they should be counted.
And I'm sorry, but you're not speaking about facts right now about non-citizen votes.
On CNN's website.
Okay. That is not on CNN's website. There is no evidence of large-scale voter fraud happening.
This is disgusting, okay? This is what they do in close elections. It has nothing to do with who Donald Trump declared the winner. It has to do with close elections. And every time there's a close election, the Republicans deploy the same strategy of tell people it's rigged, tell people it's fraud, go to the court, go to the federal court, get the protesters out there banging on the supervisor's glass door, and meanwhile, Rick Scott has been the governor of this state for 8 long-ass years. And any problems that have happened in Broward County, he refused to do anything about. Know why? Because it was Democrat and on Democrat. It was Tim Canova versus Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And he didn't give a damn. It's like if your enemy is going to beat up your enemy, just stand back and let them do it. Don't get involved. If your enemy is kicking the ass of your enemy, just let them do it. Let them destroy themselves. And 8 years went by. And this man knew that our machines were old. He knew that there was, first of all, this recount. You want to know why it takes so long? I told you we had a very long ballot. That's by design. And they put some really crazy crap on our ballot, like one of the choices we had was, do we want to ban offshore drilling and indoor vaping? That was one question. Both those topics, one question. That's how ridiculous it is. And they put all these long-ass, legalese language on the ballot. And that's what takes so long when you don't have enough voting machines to begin with, and we don't. So that's the first part. Second part. It was a 2-page ballot. Oh, yeah, front and back. It was a long-ass freaking ballot. So now, what they have to do with these old machines that we have is they have to separate the first page from the second page manually. Okay, that's what the election, counters, the people that are down there now, that's what they're doing. They're separating the first page from the second page, and then they're feeding only the first page that has the senator's race, the governor's race, the disputed agriculture commissioner's race. But the machines can only count one of those at a time. And recounts have been triggered by our law. Nobody called for a recount. It's written into our law that if there's less than a 0.5 percentage point difference in the results of any race, that there is an automatic machine recount. No one asked for it. It's the law. And they can only count one race at a time, so they have to repeat it. They have to do the Senate race. Then they have to do it again for the governor's race. Then they have to do it again for the agriculture. And this is why they can't make the deadlines. And they've told our governor this for years. This is the tried and true Florida way.
I will not sit idly by while unethical liberals try to steal this election from the great people of Florida.
Rick Scott is trying to stop all the votes from being counted, and he's impeding the democratic process.
It is important that everyone involved in the election process strictly adhere to the rule of law.
I am replacing my words of concession with an uncompromised and unapologetic call that we count every single vote.
Welcome to our I told you we vote on snack trays. I told you we vote by drawing. We have to draw. I mean, this is unbelievable. And this man is overseeing his own election. And for 8 years, he has known that Florida's election system is broken. And he had no problem with it. Now, all of a sudden, the liberals are trying to steal. This is ridiculous. This is stupid. This is terrible. Oh, and now there's all these stories about, there's this crazy girl. I'm just going to call her Laura Looney, because I don't want to give her, but she used to work for, Project Veritas, which loves to edit video just like Sarah Sanders does now, which is why CNN is suing her for libel. Because they put out doctored videos like autocrats do, like freaking dictators do, like kings do, like people who practice propaganda because they're running a cult country like North Korea. Oh my God, that's why there's a lawsuit there. But okay, so we have this bizarre, antique, ridiculously old voting system here in Florida. This man has known it's broken for 8 years, but he didn't have a problem with it because it was only affecting Democrats in Palm Beach, in Broward, and Miami. Why would that be? Because that's where we live. But I will tell you about illegal ballots. In Bay County, which is a stronghold for Republicans, okay? That's where the hurricane, part of it was. There is a supervisor of elections who is so freaking dirty that he violated the law in front of everyone's face, and everyone here knows it, and you just don't see Looney Laura who's saying, oh my God, the Broward County Sheriff called in a false, I swear to God, this is what they're telling people. They called in a false bomb threat to the Fort Lauderdale airport. The Broward County Sheriff did that, and he did it because he was trying to cover up the fact that people were stealing and making off with provisional ballots. I swear to God, loony, freaky people. And they retweet it to their other loony, freaky friends who somehow always end up on my Twitter feed looking for an argument. And because I'm so freaking nice and kind and I don't curse people out on my Twitter feed as much as I want to, they keep coming back. Go, you prove that there's no fraud. I go, no, you're the accuser. You have the burden of proof. You prove that there was voter fraud. You show me the vote. And they'll quote, each other. Well, here's what really happened at the Fort Lauderdale airport. Somebody found a box in an Avis rent-a-car that was marked provisional. And the sheriffs saw it. And they didn't want to touch it. They wanted people to come and witness how they were going to handle this box. Guess what was in the box? Guess. School supplies. It was pens and envelopes and things like that. You remember there was a school teacher who also called her principal because she saw a box sitting at one of the polling places, her school. And she didn't know what to do, and she didn't want to touch it, so she called her principal. Her principal said, okay, let's call the sheriff. Let's get some people around to witness. Oh, nobody touch anything. They opened the box. Guess what was in the box? Guess what was in it? School supplies. Pens and envelopes. There were no ballots, but they are spreading all this crap. And if Rick Scott wins, will anybody have any faith in his senator? Oh, well, he's a Republican, so it doesn't matter if he cheated. It doesn't matter if he suppressed. It doesn't matter if he, he wants to impound our voting machines. And the court said, hell no. He should recuse himself. Take the machines.
Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
The Secretary of State's own people say they see no evidence of fraud. But let me ask you directly, as you see what has gone on in Broward County, do you feel as if the count has run smoothly there?
Oh, listen, we need to make sure that the recount goes forward. It goes forward smoothly. They've been working around the clock. But what's important, John, is you're right. There is no evidence of fraud. Here's what there is evidence of. There is evidence of 8 years of Rick Scott as the governor of Florida trying to manipulate the outcome of elections. He did it by making it harder to register voters. Yep. He did it by making the number of voting places during early voting, by reducing the number of early voting locations. Yeah. He did it by making sure that students couldn't vote on college campuses. Yep. He did it by trying to purge 200,000 voters from our voting rolls, including a World War II veteran who's a constituent of mine. Yesterday was Veterans Day. It's appalling. The governor now, John, this is important. The governor has now actually taken the unheard of approach of trying to use his own state police to impound voting machines before this election is even over. He's the governor of the state of Florida. He's not an unelected autocrat who can use state levers to try to change elections to his benefit. We need to count the votes. We need to make sure that every valid vote is counted, and we need to just follow the law. The governor has been able to get away with spinning conspiracy theories, ignoring his own past of trying to manipulate elections. It's time he's held accountable, and we stop listening to these crazy conspiracy theories and just make sure that we count all the votes.
Thank you, Ted Deutsch. He's a congressman here. He's been on this show. I mean, this is the repeating pattern, and it happened in Georgia, too. All the purging and all of the suppression and the closing. I told you, in one African American community, they tried to close 6 of the 9 polling places. I told you here, I went to vote, early voting. They limited how many early voting places there were this year to almost none, and that's why it took 2 hours to vote. What kind of a 21st century state takes 2 hours to vote? It's because they limit the number of machines, and you have to sit in this chair and show your ID, and then in that chair and swipe your thing, and then fill out a form because they mailed you a ballot, and you're not going to use your mail-in ballot because I know they throw them away. So I want to do in-person vote. Oh, but we sent you a ballot, so fill out this form and tell me that you're not going to use that ballot and you're going to do it here today. All right, let's fill out that form. Then you get on to your snack tray, and it's a 2-pager front and back with legalese and 19 amendments that nobody understands. Why are you asking me if I want to ban offshore drilling and ban indoor vaping? What does it have to do with each other? What is that? Nobody understood anything on that. It was just, why do they do it? Why?
Well, we saw over the weekend, starting Thursday with the governor's press conference, and continuing right on through the weekend with statements from the governor and Senator Rubio and President Trump, is an attempt to undermine people's faith in what's happening in Florida and ultimately undermine people's faith in our democracy. That's the wrong approach. It's a dangerous approach. What we ought to be doing is let the process play out, make sure that every valid vote is counted, and then we live with the result.
Yes, and you know what else should happen, Congressman Deutsch? Bill Nelson needs to recuse himself. How is it possible that a governor who refused to fix what is obviously a broken system for 8 long years because it benefited him, now is pointing at that broken system and blaming others for it, is now in charge of his own freaking recount? That is sick. Let me play you what yesterday a Florida judge had to, or was it? Yeah, I can't. All the days are mashed together. There's a judge in Broward County who has to listen to all these freaking lawsuits that Rick Scott filed. All these stupid slime. Who's the real fraud, Rick Scott? I believe it would be you. Let's see. Rick Scott fraud. Let's Google that. No, let's just Google it and see. Oh, look. Another irony. Scott is familiar with fraud. In 1997, the U.S. government announced it was investigating healthcare company Columbia HCA, of which Scott was CEO, to see whether it falsely billed the federal government and state for Medicare, Medicaid, and other programs and expenses. Scott resigned several months after the investigation became public, according to PolitiFact. Quote, company executives said had Scott remained CEO, the entire hospital chain would have been in jeopardy. The company ended up paying $1.7 billion in fines, a record for Medicare fraud, and still, to this day, one of the largest penalties against a company in history. Who's the real fraud, Rick? Who's the real fraud?
And there have been election problems for a long time in that county. So I have concerns about how legitimate the count is.
Well, wait a second. Saying it's going too slowly is one thing. Mm-hmm. Saying you have concerns about how legitimate the count is another, because as you just said, no one has said there's any fraud here. And the paramount issue here, is having every vote counted, even if it takes a little longer. We should not be rushed into doing this, particularly in an election that is so darn close. And one other point, Jake, even in Georgia, the Secretary of State recused himself because he was on the ballot for governor. Scott should recuse himself immediately. He has a self-interest in jaundicing this election. He should be out of it altogether.
I swear to God, how that is such a no. If Kemp, that dirty guy Kemp, who purged millions of people, could recuse himself, why can't Rick Scott, who's on the top of the ballot for senator, as governor, ignoring all that, and then pointing to all this and go, see, it's broken. Who's the real freaking fraud here? You want to see something really amazing that Scott found today? This is amazing. This is from a documentary back in 2002. 2002, talking about, a recount in Florida. The 2000 recount in Florida. In 2002, they made a whole documentary about Florida. And you may recognize this young student, this young man, as Andrew Gillum.
But when election day came, there were unexpected obstacles.
As the precincts closed later that evening, we began to get reports here in the Student Government Association from just different students about either not having their voter registration card, going to their precinct that they had voted at before, and now being told that they weren't on the roster, that their names have been purged.
Isn't that something? 16 years ago, Andrew Gillum, as a student, was involved in shady and crooked purging. And Rick Scott does nothing and now points to it and says, see, it's broken. Mine's broken. See, it's broken. Why are they doing this?
Yeah. I mean, let's just go to the source, right? So the source in each state that knows if there's any sort of election malfeasance, fraud, is the Secretary of State. Some of them are Republicans. Some of them are Democrats. Here's what the Florida Secretary of State says. Department staff continues to observe the administration of the election in Broward County. Our staff has not seen any evidence of criminal activity in Broward County at this time. So why the knee-jerk reaction, right, to voter fraud when they're winning? Republicans are winning, I mean, to John's point.
Well, I mean, only Rick Scott can answer that. And I think there's, if you look at the numbers, there is no logical reason why they're reacting this way unless they know something that we don't know yet. About what's gone on in Broward County. But the reality is the vote should be counted. These senators aren't seated until January. There's plenty of time. I think the really insidious thing, though, is what Trump is doing. He's basically trying to undermine at every turn. It's not just Florida. He weighed in on Arizona. He's weighed in on other races. He's undermining the legitimacy of elections.
Where he doesn't like the results.
Where he doesn't like the results. And that is a hallmark of a failing democracy, of someone moving towards an authoritarian, where he says, fake news. Don't believe what you see. Only believe what I say. That is very troubling. And, you know, as one of my old bosses famously said, the fish rots from the head. And he's providing cover for all of these people to say outrageous things, you know, and people who have no standing. I watched Mr. Blackwell on your air theorizing about this. He doesn't know anything. Yeah. He knows nothing about what's going on in Florida, yet he's out there on a national stage saying that there's voter fraud. There is none. There's no evidence of it. And we got to stop letting these people, you know.
Well, I mean, I think what's interesting is that when pressed, he doesn't provide evidence. He says, well, there are irregularities that we've seen in past elections.
And he doesn't know.
He doesn't know. Nobody. The Secretary of State of Florida, Detzner, has said there is no fraud. Okay, the court has said there is no fraud. Okay, here is Florida Judge Jack. I hope I'm saying his name right. I've never been in front of him, thank God. Jack Tudor. Here is our judge making a decision on Rick Scott's claim of fraud. Now, it's not the greatest audio because it's from a courtroom, okay?
Both sides, and I'm talking about lawyers, not politicians here, because I have jurisdiction over lawyers, not politicians. I am urging, because of the highly public nature of this case, to ramp down the rhetoric. If someone in this lawsuit or someone in this county has evidence of voter fraud or irregularities at the supervisor's office, they should report it to their local law enforcement officer. If the lawyers are aware of it, they should get the person to swear out an affidavit. But everything the lawyers are saying out there in front of the elections office is being beamed all over the country. We need to be careful what we say. These words mean things these days, as everybody in the room knows. So I'm urging everybody to wait till these counts are over, and there's going to be plenty of time to litigate whatever anybody wants to litigate. But let's let the voting process conclude. Let the supervisor do what she's directed to do by the secretary so that it occurs on time, and hopefully get another layer of assurances over there. I also want to urge you, Mr. Pettis, because I think since you've intervened in this case, things have rapidly gone in the right direction because the levels of communication have increased significantly. I would hope that you could emphasize to the supervisor that more transparency in this case is better. If they can give updates every couple of hours or give the canvassing board the right to give updates every couple of hours over there so that everybody knows how we're proceeding with the counts, how many have been counted, like the county attorney told us a minute ago. It seems to me that transparency is imperative in this case, and I hope you all will find some way to keep doing it.
There is no evidence of fraud in this case, and if the lawyers have evidence of fraud, whoever is the witness to the fraud, let them swear out an affidavit. I only have control over the lawyers, and therefore I'm telling you, if you see fraud or if you have evidence of fraud, you tell law enforcement or you bring it to this court with an affidavit signed under penalty of perjury, and we can litigate it. Right now, ramp it down, people. Ramp it down. Words have meaning, and people are hearing that they shouldn't have faith in elections. And meanwhile, There is a guy, and this is only Broward County, this court, right? There is a guy, he's an election, a Florida election supervisor in Bay County, and he broke the law and allowed people to vote by email. I know that there are at least 150 illegal ballots. This is what they were talking about in the other clip. This is what they're saying. There were illegal ballots. They were cast by email. 150 of them that we know of so far. That is prohibited by Florida law. So when you hear about illegal ballots, it has nothing to do with immigration. It has to do with email.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Donald Trump tweeting in Arizona that the signatures don't match, electoral corruption. This is the action of a tyrant. I'm not saying he's a tyrant, but this is how tyrants, this is how autocrats, this is how dictators behave. Not saying Donald Trump is that, but he is borrowing their language, Donnie.
Joe, unfortunately, I think this is a little bit of a harbinger of things to come. Imagine 2 years from now, that we will have a close election, and let's say Democrat wins. We've watched this man, Donald Trump. Donald Trump will come out and say, he was already teeing it up in 2016, no, this is wrong to my 50 million people. Take to the streets. These ballots are wrong. The sky is not blue. The sky is green. That will be our biggest constitutional crisis. If he could...
But, Donnie, let me cut you off really quickly here and ask you this question. Yeah. You know Donald Trump really well.
Yep.
Do you really think, as things continue to get worse and worse for him, that he is going to put himself on the ballot in 2020 knowing he's going to lose? Because, you know what, for all of his failures, he's got to know that he's going to lose.
I've always said
things are going badly.
Yeah, I think he will be disqualified before, but in the sad event he does run and he does lose, which would be a happy event, it would be stunning what we would see. He would be a president going, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. Can call the military. I mean, it is that. We have to look at this man. He really would do that. He would say, no, this is voters. I'm still here. And even if they carried him out, he would turn to 50 million Americans and say, I'm still your president.
I'm going to bomb the shit out of him.
Seriously, did you just hear what Donnie Deutsch just said? Did you hear that? And a lot of people have surmised, or said, or just blurted out, hey, in 2020, no matter what happens, he won't leave. But nobody has really explained to you how that could happen. And so I want you to pay attention to what he said about Arizona. He said Arizona was, you had to go back to Tuesday's results. Martha McSally was the winner. Don't count all the ballots. It took 6 days for Arizona to count their ballots. And in 6 days of ballot counting in a very tight race, Martha McSally conceded because Kristen Sinema actually won. Because they took the time to count the votes. And even in Arizona, your freaking governor didn't say fraud. They stayed out of all that, Republican crap and all that fray. And they let the votes get counted. And the results were different after they counted them than before they counted them on Tuesday. Now, imagine, this is what I keep on telling you. I tell you all the time, when it's close, they'll steal it. I've seen it. I live here in Florida. Arizona tried to do it. Donald Trump's tweeting, the signatures don't match in Arizona. Throw the ballots away. And McSally won. McSally won. Not true. No fraud. Just vote counting. Different result. Democratic senator. First female senator. First Democrat to win a Senate race in Arizona since 1988. Congratulations. Now, I believe your governor will pick Martha McSally to fill McCain's seat, and so that's how they'll split the baby. It's a very Solomon-like thing, and whoever my caller was from Phoenix who said that, you're a genius, because that's what I think is going to happen. Remember that? Yeah. So idiot girl Laura Ingraham is tweeting out last night, who do you think Governor Douchey is going to pick? And I wrote, duh. Why are people with microphones, why are people with television shows allowed to say ridiculous, stupid things? I don't even understand how this is, not propaganda in America. I digress. So he said Arizona was rigged, okay? And he wanted to go back to Tuesday's results. We could end up with 35 to 40 House seats, and Trump declared victory in all those House seats a week ago. We have a different result in Arizona than we did on election night. Florida, we don't know. The date for certifying our election isn't until November 20th. There's a reason for that. What is today? We have another week. This is ridiculous what they're saying. This is dumb. But think about why. Because it's going to be a close election. If Donald Trump survives Mueller's investigation, because the House will not impeach Donald Trump by itself. Why? Because it has absolutely no chance of going anywhere in the Republican Senate. You need a two-thirds vote to remove the president in the Senate. We're probably looking with Kristen Sinema and perhaps Bill Nelson keeping his seat. You might be seeing a 51-seat majority for the Republicans, okay? So it's very important to Donald Trump that he has a 51 or 50, right? Because they're going to just ram through all these judicial nominees. This lame duck is going to be shocking. It's going to be sickening. You watch what happens. That said, the House is not going to spin its wheels and impeach Donald Trump knowing that the Senate will not remove him. It would be a useless exercise. And they've got big fish to fry, meaning they got health care to fix, and they better, because I went shopping for a new health care plan. My health care plan that I'm on now, the one that I'm on now, went from $700 to $2,000 a month. And it's now got a $6,000 deductible. And when you look real close, which is what I did, you find out that if you should go to the hospital or you need to go to the ER, they will do a 20%, you get 20% co-insurance after you meet your deductible for $2,000 a month. Now, the first plan that I saw that had a $450 charge to go to the ER flat, and they would pay, and I would have to pay $600 a day if I were hospitalized, if I were admitted. That premium is $1,800, and I'm only trying to insure myself. This isn't a family plan. So I don't know what I'm going to do because I don't have it. I don't, I pay myself $2,000 a week. And unless you guys really pony up and someone makes a humongous donation to pay me next year, I'm just saying, I'm going to have to let my health insurance go. And, I've had cancer. It's just the way it's going to be because I don't have it. I just don't have it. So they have big fish to fry. They got to fix healthcare. They have to restore those risk corridor payments. They have to restore all kinds of things to the Affordable Health Care Act that Trump shredded, that Trump took away, so that these premiums are now so astronomically high that a single person who works can't afford health care. Sick. But if Mueller comes with his report, and his report is devastating, meaning the rumors are true that he's been sitting on dozens of sealed indictments, to include Roger Stone, to include Jerome Corsi, to include Donald Trump Jr. You can't, the jury is still out about whether or not you can indict a sitting president. And with Kavanaugh up there, I think the answer will be no. Okay? Because Kavanaugh is one of those that was put there just like Whitaker. Guys who are willing to lie, guys who are willing to cheat, guys who are willing to, skirt the truth and pretend that nothing ever happened when, Rick Scott was, forced out of the CEO-ship of HCA Columbia, which is the hospital chain down here, by the way. It is the largest hospital chain down here. The hospital nearest my house is that company's hospital. And they are notoriously bad. They got their nurses working double shifts, 12 hours, and then another 12 hours. And the nurses are like giving a guy who needs plasma platelets and pricking some guy's finger and saying, oh, your blood sugar's so good today. And he's like, why did you prick my finger? Because you have diabetes. No, I don't. That's the kind of hospital it is. And Rick Scott's company was forced to pay $1.7 billion in Medicare fraud, Medicaid fraud. And he is the fraud here, okay? But the reason why they pick these people and the reason why they do these things is because in a close election between Donald Trump and whoever we pick, if he should survive the Mueller inquiry, meaning if Mueller gives a report, then the Democrats in the House will impeach him. And they will hope to God that there are enough Republicans in the Senate who will see the devastating news about Donald Trump being bought and paid for by foreign governments, being a money launderer, his son lying under oath, all these things. And, you know, he's doing the written answers right now, so perhaps they'll get him on perjury as well when he, you know, refuses to admit the truth about what he got from WikiLeaks and what Roger Stone told him and that Steve Bannon knew about WikiLeaks and, you know, Corsi also knew and, you know, all the... but perhaps then some of the ferret-like, spineless Republicans will say, enough of him. Enough of him. I don't know. The impeachment will not happen until Mueller's report comes, and it has to be a devastating report or else nothing will happen. And we'll go through an election in 2020. And trust me, it will be close. This country is divided right down the ass crack, as you can see. Rural America versus the people who live and work in cities. The people who pay taxes. The people who live in places where property taxes are sky high, like New Jersey and Connecticut and New York, where everybody's voting blue. Nobody liked that tax cut. Why? Because the blue states are supporting the red states, and all of us blue states know it. And the red states who hate welfare, they're getting $1.75 for every dollar they pay in, and blue states are getting like 75 cents for every dollar they pay in. It's reverse socialism. And you know, we're not so against it if only they would be honest. But can you imagine a close election in 2020? You remember in 2016, Donald Trump was asked if he would respect the results of the election. And he said, it depends on what the result is. It depends. Now you understand what he meant. I personally think the reason why he didn't leave his house yesterday and the reason why he won't go with the world leaders to the cemetery is not that he's afraid of rain and not that he's afraid of cemeteries. It's that he's depressed and angry because he campaigned in West Virginia and Joe Manchin won and he lost. Because he campaigned in Montana and he lost. Because he campaigned in Arizona and he lost. And now everything he's got right, he's got Rick DeSantis and the fraudster himself, Rick Scott, and he can't have that be lost too because that means the entire country rejected him. He knows the entire world has rejected him. He knows that because when they went to the World War I 100th year commemoration of Armistice Day, which is now Veterans Day, the whole world was laughing at him. Just like they did at the United Nations. Macron said, don't you understand that nationalism is the exact opposite of patriotism? That when you have nationalists emboldened, people die. People die and the world order falls apart. That's why we have NATO. World War I, by the way, was continued in World War II. And World War III will look just like World War I and II. It will be a fight about fascism. Except with Donald Trump, you get fascists. Not anti-fascist like FDR. Oh, no. Oh, no. Like Churchill. Oh, no. Oh, no. You would be on the side with the fascists. You would be fighting with Poland, with Hungary. You'd be fighting with fascists. And this is what the white supremacist wet dream is. And that is why they love him. But he won't leave in a close election. Just know that. This is, like they said, a harbinger. This is a brief little look. And that's why I'm spending so much time on it. This is like the Enabling Act, saying that your votes, the whole thing is rigged while they rig it, saying that the count is rigged while they don't count it, saying that people are finding, boxes of ballots when all that is school supplies, making you doubt democracy, making you think it can't function anymore, making you think, democracy is just some antiquated idea, and the new idea is fascism. And we need, that's why Trump tweeted out, I swear to God, he tweets out, and this is the end of World War I. They're supposed to be over there commemorating the end of it, where Poland, they had pogroms. Every one of my relatives, every one of the people in my community that I grew up with, they all fled Europe because of this. Every one of them fled Europe because they knew what was coming. I guess that's where I get it from. Read the signs, know what's coming, know when to go. Know when to fold them, know when to hold them.
When President Trump celebrated the Senate victory, so did white supremacists. This changed history, neo-Nazi Andrew Anglin said on his site, The Daily Stormer, which is the most widely read neo-Nazi website in America. This is a race war, period. They also reveled in the re-election of Congressman Steve King, who has a history of making racist remarks, like in this 2017 anti-immigration tweet saying, "We can't restore our civilization with somebody else's babies," or his unsubstantiated claim about immigrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border.
They weigh 130 pounds and they've got calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert.
If last night was a referendum on Steve King's white nationalism, as the Democrats were trying to frame it, then white nationalism won, Anglin wrote on his site. Both King and President Trump vehemently deny they are racist or enable white supremacists. Trump pushed back at a recent press conference when asked if the Republican Party was seen as supporting white nationalists because of his rhetoric.
What do you make of that?
I don't believe it.
Oh, it isn't just that he said, I don't believe it. They cut out the best part where he called Yunichi Almondor a racist for asking if he supports white nationalism. Oh, you're a racist. This is how it happens. This is what it looks like. And this whole crazy thing with fraudsters being put in charge of the Justice Department, Whitaker, and fraudsters saying there's fraud in the election, Rick Scott. I mean, these are people, and the President of the United States is a fraudster. Trump University, just as one little example, $24 million settlement there. This is how it happens. You cannot have corrupt people running elections. You cannot have corrupt people speaking for our country on a world stage. You cannot have corrupt people in charge of the Justice Department. The Justice Department. Listen, I'm getting nervous. I really am. And, like I said, I have high hopes that democracy is tough enough, strong enough, feisty enough, and that we are educated enough to beat this back. Buy a stinking podcast.